Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's project is going to be these coastal themed pendants. So you have one side which is multi-layered to create an island or a coastline, and then it also has a blank side. So when you've created your island, you move it over into the blank side to then finish filling with resin to create the sea going along the coastline or around the island. And this set comes with some leather necklace straps and some pinch bails, and also these jewel shaped molds, which I won't be using today. I saw Claire at Claire's Crafty Corner make this project only a few days ago for me. By the time you see this, by the time this is published, it'll have been about a week, 10 days since she did her video. So I will link her video as well. I'll also link this set and the sand. The sand I used in video 7, I don't like the colour of that. So I bought new sand for this using Claire's, the link in Claire's description. And I got a big surprise when it arrived because I hadn't taken any notice of it in the description. I clicked the link, saw that it was only £4 or £5 in money, so I didn't take any notice of the weight. I expected to get a little tub the size of that Mod Podge tub. So if you want to buy this sand, do be aware of the size of the bag. Okay, so I decided to try making this with UV resin for quickness because I had wasted most of the day on another project which was a major fail. And when I say major fail, you know that it must be major, because I don't mind making mistakes and showing you those mistakes. The other project was a major fail, just trust me on that. So I'm trying this with UV for quickness, just a quick evening project. I'm putting some sand into some UV resin, giving it a stir, then giving it a minute to settle, because something I learned in video 7 is that if you don't put enough sand in, it will separate, so the sand will sink and leave a layer of clear resin on the top. So I'm leaving it a minute to see how much more, if any, sand I need to put in, and then putting a bit more in, then leaving it a minute. I think I revisited it 2 or 3 times to top up with more sand. Okay, so now I am going to start putting the sand in, using a couple of different sized sticks and tools to make sure I get the sand all pressed into all of the deeper areas. And what I was trying to do there was, I'm trying to not fill the whole cavity just yet. Without having rewatched Claire's video at the time, I think she had used 2 different colours of sand, or she had coloured some sand, so used the same sand but coloured some, and done it in 2 layers to create 2 different shades of sand, one to represent being deeper underwater and the other one to be more I think lighter coloured on the top to represent the dry sand. So I was trying to copy that. So at this moment in time, I've only approximately half filled the cavities to create what would be either the underwater or the above water levels. And I'm going to then, when I come to do the next layer, I'm going to put a bit of colour into it to make 2 different shades. And now we've jumped ahead. I've finished those first layers and cured them under the UV lamp. I'm just checking that they are cured. And then I've picked out a couple of yellow colours from my opaque pigments to decide which to use to put in the sand, just to change the colour up slightly. They were both a bit too yellow for my liking, but I didn't have a brown or anything yellowy brown, so I figured just a little bit of yellow mixed with the sand would hopefully dull that yellowness back down again. And here I go putting in the second layer of sand, filling up the cavity all the way now. And again I've jumped ahead to where I have filled all 3 and cured them all, and now for the exciting bit, to take them out, see how they look, and then move them over to the blank side. Now I am picking out some little tiny fish that I had made up in my little spares jar. I always have some little fish made up in a spares jar, just because you never know when the mood's going to take you to make a scenery, a beach scenery. And now I am also having a look at some shells. Now, bearing in mind that I want to fit some fish in there, I didn't know if I would have room for any shells as well. These shells are way too big. They're not too big as in they don't fit, but they're too big to be realistic in the scenery. These shells are from Temu, I believe, so I won't be able to link them. Bear in mind, in case you didn't already know, that it is illegal to take shells from the beach in the UK, from any beach, so you must buy them. Jumping ahead now again to where I have decided for definite that the shells are too big, so I'm now starting to plan which fish I want to use, in which mould, how many fish, roughly how I will position them. I will put, I think I put a layer of resin on the bottom of the mould first for the fish to then sit on, so that they're not stuck at the bottom, so that they look like they are actually swimming. And jumping ahead again, I've picked out a couple of colours to use in the sea. These are a brand new pack of alcohol inks, and they need a really good shake up. I'm sure I'll show you the box in a moment. Yeah, there we go. I think I'd picked out 3 colours altogether, 2 blues and a green, but I ended up only using one that was called ultramarine, and I think that was a perfect name for it. And so here we go with putting the sea coloured resin in. Again, it's UV resin, and I just did a thin coat on the bottom of all 3 moulds. And here I could see on this square one that it was going around the top of that island, which I wasn't too happy about. For some reason they don't sit flush in this in the blank sides of the moulds for me. Okay, now that those first layers have cured, you can see that for some reason under the UV light, that nice light blue has turned very dark, and I don't know why. If anybody knows the reason why UV light, UV resin would change the colour of an alcohol link, could you please let me know in the comments? Thank you. I decided to crack on anyway because I'm a trier, and I do another layer of the blue before putting the fish in because I want the fish a little bit higher up. And I didn't hate that dark blue. Looking at them there, I think that dark blue at the bottom, if the higher up layers had have stayed paler, I think that contrast would have been nice. Having rewatched Claire's video afterwards, she did actually suggest that one thing that she would do different would be to have just done a blue layer at the bottom and then clear on top. I think that would have been a good idea. Okay, so you can see there that I have put the final layer on top of the fish on that round mould, and I think you can guess that this is not going well. So I'm not going to waste your time anymore watching the rest of this process. I will cut to a picture where you can see them fully done and see how it did not work out. But please hang around because I do it again with epoxy. I come back the next day all refreshed and do it again, taking my time with epoxy, and that is worth sticking around for. Please stick around for that. And now we are using epoxy resin. Much of it is the same, so I actually didn't film a lot of this, I don't think. And I'm speeding through what I did film because it's much the same, other than putting sand in epoxy versus putting it in UV and then just leaving it to cure rather than put it under a UV light. There's nothing really new to show you. However, we still do need to turn them into a necklace or a bag charm, and I did really struggle with that, so please stick around for that. And now the epoxy sand sections have cured, and I am moving them over to the blank side again, ready to put my fish and my sea in again. This time I'm giving them a really good press down to try and make sure that no resin leaks underneath them. I still can tell that they're not sitting flush with the absolute edge of the blank sections for some reason. And now I'm putting my fish in again, and I'm concerned that they're going to float up because with epoxy the moulds are going to get filled fully and therefore the fish could rise. I'm not concerned about them moving right now because I can push them back into place, but I will have to keep an eye on them to prevent them from floating upwards and maybe tipping sideways. I actually had a bit of difficulty repositioning them because I would either tip them over. Some of them actually, on occasion, they were actually sticking to the bottom, so I had got them completely flat, and they were actually suctioning to the silicone at the bottom, so it was a bit awkward, but we got there in the end. And I'm giving them a bit of a clean up and emptying out a bit where I had overfilled, lifting them up every now and again to be able to bring them up to eye level to check from the side and to give you a closer look. I apologise, sometimes I was off frame. And now I'm going to use some opaque white to create some sea froth, you know, where the waves have crashed against the beach. And I've just briefly brought you back to ×1 speed so that I can show you the frothiness. On ×4 speed you couldn't see it at all, too quick, so I wanted you to be able to see the froth. I look like I'm going really slow, don't I? And whilst waiting for the sea to cure, I found that there was a manual with those alcohol inks, and I couldn't see anything that said whether you can or can't use them with UV, or to be aware that you can use them with UV but they'll change colour. So I don't know. I'll have to try them again at some point, and maybe it's just that I cured them too fast because I didn't hold the lamp away at a distance to start with to cure them slow, or maybe you just cannot use them with UV, I don't know. But never mind, I'm happy with the colour that they have with the epoxy versions. If you've enjoyed this project, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. If you've learned anything at all from comparing alcohol ink in UV versus epoxy, I'd especially appreciate a thumbs up and a comment. I am more than happy to waste a little bit of resin within reason to do comparison videos if that's the type of things that people would want, and they'd rather watch someone else waste their resin to give them the answer rather than waste their own resin. I do appreciate it is an expensive hobby, so if you would like me to do comparison videos like that, please let me know. And for now I am just picking off little tiny bits of overpour, feeling around the edges, feeling how sharp, if at all, they are, which they're not. My only concern is with that square one, I would not want to wear that as a pendant. It's not sharp on the edges as such, but I am concerned about them corners. But the other ones, even though they're a 90-degree angle, they're not sharp. I got the pour level just right, so they're not under poured or over poured to create a sharp edge. And here I am struggling with the bales that came with the set. They are clearly extremely too small. I can't, disastrously too small. So now I have pulled out one of the fake leather chains, and there's no way that those links are going to go through the holes, and even if I take those links off, the end piece, the piece that joins the links to the rope, are too fat. I would have to pinch them at the sides to flatten them. Again, those are the ones that came with the set. So I have gone hunting around in my jewellery making drawer and found some bigger bales, but they, I believe, are still too small. So I found some jump rings, and I have flattened one out as best I can. It does get through, but there's no way it will close up again. So I've resorted to taking the links off the jewellery chain connector. I'm squashing the connector, so now that is bent like a V shape. Push it through, flatten it back out, and then put the chain back on. And as we near the end of the video, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It is completely free, but it helps my channel. And for anybody who is willing and able to donate monetarily, no matter how small the donation, I do now have Buy Me a Coffee. So if you feel that I have earned a small donation and you can afford it, please, no pressure, then any donations will be gratefully received and will enable me to continue buying products, to continue making these videos. And now I am wanting to make either a keychain or a bag charm, but the links are too small. So I end up resorting to just using the actual keyring part. Hang around a moment for the glamour shots. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will return next week. Have a good week. Bye bye.